I think the philosophy behind scaling boils down to really two things. Number one, do you have a good business model? And by that, I mean, do you create value for someone, right? If you're serving food, let's imagine you're running a restaurant. You create value for someone by making them happy because they get a great meal at your restaurant. If you make a great shirt, it needs to fit your customer. If you make software, your customer needs to like using your software and it makes their life easier. If you make a video game, the video game's got to be fun. So that's number one. Your product needs to create value for someone in the ecosystem, right? It needs for whoever your customer is. That's the first thing. If you don't create value, the bigger you get, the worse off you are making everyone else in the world. And number two is that your internal operations need to be designed to work well as you get bigger. Lots of companies have a great product or great service, but they have not set themselves up internally to scale beyond just being a small company. So you really have to think about, how do I engineer the inside of my company, the way people work, the systems they use, the technology, the data, so that we can continue to grow.
Before we dive back into today's conversation, I want to share something important. This episode includes a paid partnership with BetterHelp, a platform designed to make starting therapy easier. I know from my own journey as a leader and entrepreneur that life can sometimes feel overwhelming. There are seasons where stress, uncertainty, and pressure build up, and you need a safe space to process it all. That's where therapy comes in. Therapy isn't only for people facing clinical challenges. It's a space to reflect, grow, and find better ways to manage stress, relationships, and personal goals. It takes courage to seek help, but it's also one of the smartest investments you can make in your mental and emotional well-being. That's why I'm proud to highlight BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you simply fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a credentialed therapist in just a couple of days. If the first match doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch therapists at no extra cost until you find someone who truly connects with you. Inside the platform, you'll also find tools like journaling and group sessions on different topics that can support your growth. And with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 Trustpilot rating, BetterHelp is a platform you can rely on. So if you feel like you'd benefit from talking to a therapist, visit betterhelp.com/KingDames. That's betterhelp.com/KingDames to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Once again, this is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, and I encourage you to take that first step if you've been thinking about it. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in yourself.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen. You once again welcome to the Kingdoms podcast and Diary of a CFO. And today I've got with me a triple VIP fighting out of Philadelphia, United States of America. Make welcome Nick of Eagle Rock Jain. And when
I'm
the
not sure if Eagle
action
Rock is my middle
begins,
name yet, but
when the action begins, the referee in the octagon is Donald Trump. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Whoa, let's give you your flowers. So ladies and gentlemen, Nick Jain is not just a typical finance guest. He is a Harvard MBA, a former McKinsey consultant, a former private equity investor, a turnaround CEO and CFO who has scaled multiple companies beyond $100 million. He has rebuilt broken businesses. He's lifted profits, from 10% to 35%. He has transformed product culture, revenue engines, and decision systems with surgical precision. Today, he leads Eagle Rock CFO services, helping founders in the 5 to 50 million revenue range run elite level finance systems without the Fortune 500 price tag. He describes himself as someone who likes hard problems and clear answers. This conversation is for founders, operators, and leaders who want sharper thinking, stronger margins, and better decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome Nick Jain to the Kingdoms podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for the very kind and illustrious introduction.
Wow. They call me the king of intros. We're ranked the global top 2% in the world for a reason. And of course, it's good to have the best of the best. One guest described me as a modern day business philosopher. So as a modern day business philosopher, I have that responsibility of gathering the best and the brightest minds of my time, of my era, you know, document their thought leadership. And of course, in audits, we say if it was not documented, it was not done. So don't hate the player, hate the game. Let's start with your origin story. You actually trained in mathematics and physics, and of course, you earned an MBA from Harvard and entered private equity and consulted. What early belief about decision making shaped how you operate as a CFO and as a CEO? Your background is actually mathematics and physics, right? and of course you've got that MBA you had from Harvard, and of course you got into private equity, you got into consulting. But what was it early on that made you make that decision to get into the world of finance? And of course, like what philosophies do you have that still guide your decision making today?
Sure. So it's look, even as a child, I really cared about kind of two things: understanding how things worked, number one, and number two, quantifying them, right? I was the guy who, when you're walking along the sidewalk, counting the number of breaks in the sidewalk to figure out, hey, to each one, we're walking 10 meters, each one is half a meter apart. That means that they are 20 tiles in the sidewalk. I always wanted to understand how fast balls dropped, why they bounced. How does the TV work, right? I disassembled my first TV when I was 12 years old. So that worked and
Oh,
continued on into college, whereas you mentioned I'd studied math and physics. And the cool thing is I realized, sometime in college that companies are in some ways like big machines. Okay. They have rules that make them work. They need to, like, not just from the financial side, but there's ways that they work internally in terms of culture. And these things, if you can think of them as a system or machine, you can understand how they work well and how to create a lot of value. And that's what I did, trained in early in my career in private equity. Private equity firms are really good at generally making the companies they own more valuable through better operations, better expansion, helping them grow. And that's really what I've done throughout my career. Think of companies as machines or as things that follow, maybe not machines, but things that have rules, that have laws that they follow. And if you're good at understanding those laws, then you're really good at making the machine better, the company better. And that can be true. I run a shoe company and a trucking company and a software company, and each has different rules to the game. But at the end of the day, they still all follow certain rules and principles that if you're good at figuring them out, you can do a great job at improving those companies.
wow. So you actually served as a turnaround CFO and a CEO across trucking, software, e-commerce, and that includes businesses that have scaled past the $100 million mark. So what do most founders misunderstand about the philosophy behind scaling?
Sure. I think the philosophy behind scaling boils down to really two things. Number one, do you have a good business model? And by that, I mean, do you create value for someone, right? If you're serving food, let's imagine you're running a restaurant. You create value for someone by making them happy because they get a great meal at your restaurant. If you make a great shirt, it needs to fit your customer. If you make software, your customer needs to like using your software and it makes their life easier. If you make a video game, the video game's got to be fun. So that's number one. Your product needs to create value for someone in the ecosystem, right? It needs for whoever your customer is. That's the first thing. If you don't create value, the bigger you get, the worse off you are making everyone else in the world. And number two is that your internal operations need to be designed to work well as you get bigger. Lots of companies have a great product or great service, but they have not set themselves up internally to scale beyond just being a small company. So you really have to think about, how do I engineer the inside of my company, the way people work, the systems they use, the technology, the data, so that we can continue to grow.
Hmm. Growth hacking right there. So you actually spent years in private equity and of course institutional investing. What do professional investors see inside businesses that founders often ignore until it's too late?
I think professional investors. So I think the biggest difference between founders and professional investors is founders tend to have a great vision, right? They're the ones who built the company, have often made them, very, very successful companies. But the founders have really only been in that one company for most of their career. They haven't looked around and seen in what it's like other companies are like and what good looks like. They may have a great product team, but they don't know what great looks like on a finance team or HR or marketing, right? They're just used to seeing what they're seeing. Professional investors, on the other hand, have looked across hundreds or thousands of companies and they can say, look, McDonald's may be great at marketing, but Taco Bell may be great at social media and Wendy's may be great at Square Burgers, right? So you need to, what professional investors do really well is taking the best stuff from different circumstances that they've seen and then try and implement the best of all of those things at one company. So it's not just good product, but it has to be good at marketing, good at running HR, good at running finance, good at running manufacturing, etc.
Wow, that actually it feels like the work we do in audit. You know, you are auditing different entities, and of course, you're getting the knowledge across board, and that actually puts you in a position where you understand how things operate across different. ecosystems, different industries, different entities, right? And you're able to provide well-informed advisory to the operators, to the management, to the leadership of, the businesses. But, many founders actually think that they understand cash flows because they review the reports. And there's something I'm fond of saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. Cash is reality. So in your view, what is the difference between looking at the numbers and actually possessing financial intelligence
Between looking at the numbers and doing what, sorry?
and having financial intelligence?
Sure. So look, finance, like understanding finance and business is a skill and an art or a science, no different than, let's say, painting or being a doctor of physics. It's a skill, right? Everyone
Mhm.
knows how to add and subtract. You learn that in high school, but not everyone can master understanding what the numbers mean, right? Everyone knows, what blood looks like, but a doctor understands how to save your life in a way that at least I don't, right? So being good at finance and thinking about business optimization is a learned skill and it's a practice skill. You can learn it a little bit from books, you can learn it a little bit from experience, you can learn it a little bit from doing, but it is a skill. And a lot of businesses often don't, they haven't hired someone who has that skill. And the funny thing is, they don't know what good looks like, right? Because they haven't seen like a world-class CFO the way or world-class COO or Chief Human Resource Officer the way it would run at $1 billion company, because that's often not where they started. And you often don't get to experience the working with those people till you're, very, very late in your career. And so that's why it's really important for kind of smaller and mid-sized companies to think about the fact that no matter how smart I am, number one, I can't do it all. And number two, I may not have an area of expertise in finance or marketing or whatever it is. And so I should hire someone who does.
Mm, interesting. And, in comes the fractional CFOs. So you often speak about small businesses flying blind on cash flow. Why does this happen even in companies generating millions in revenue? And what are the early warning signs leaders should never ignore?
Sure. So I think there's two or three things that are different that people miss about cash flows. Number one is that profit is not necessarily equal to cash flow. And this is
Mhm.
particularly important in working capital businesses like retailers or manufacturers or shippers. That's number one. Number two is there are aspects of cash flow that are, sorry, number two is you have to think about reinvesting in your business and maintaining your business. So a lot of businesses, they require you to keep putting money into them to repair, let's say, your factory or to buy more inventory. And a lot of companies don't think about that, hey, even though I'm profitable, I got to take a large portion of those profits and reinvest it in the business. That's typically called your reinvestment rate. And number three, you have to think about, oh, I started this business by taking money from somewhere. It could have been from my savings. It could have been from venture capital. It could have been from banks. And at some point, I got to pay those guys back. And that's going to take away from my cash flows too. So how do I think about that as well? Well, so ideally, no decision at a company is made emotionally. Whether you're hiring someone, whether you're firing someone, whether you're selling a customer, those decisions, nothing should be made emotionally, right? Emotions are for your personal life, ideally not your professional life. Because the moment you start making decisions emotionally, you're not necessarily doing the right thing, you're reacting quickly. So I think the biggest thing that founders or CEOs or executives, it can be really any title, it can be junior people as well, is think about number one is why is what I'm doing good for my organization? Just ask yourself this. I actually have a little piece of paper on my computer that says, is this good for my organization? Number two is think about the risks of the decision you're making. And some risks are okay, some risks are not. And number three, ask yourself, did I actually do any quantification? Did I spend 30 seconds doing some math here? Because if you didn't spend 30 seconds doing some math, you're probably making an emotional judgment. And a very simple example is if you're hiring someone and you're going to pay them $50,000 a year, ask yourself, they're going to cost me $50,000 a year. Are they going to make me $55,000 a year more in profit? If the answer is no, it's a bad decision. And you just have to spend that 30 seconds doing very, very simple math sometimes to make sure that you're thinking about this rigorously and not emotionally.
Mm. Interesting. The numbers always have to add up. So fractional CFO versus full-time CFO, you're actually frequently asked, when do you hire? a fractional CFO, or what time is a full-time CFO resourceful for a company? What practical thresholds do you use, to advise founders when making this call?
Sure. So I'll start by giving a preface and then I'll answer your question directly. So, a lot of people use the title CFO to mean different things. In a lot of companies, a CFO is just the person who's managing your accounting and cash flows. And that is not usually a CFO. That's a treasurer or controller, even if he or she has the title of chief financial officer. A good CFO does four things. They manage accounting, they manage cash, that's called treasury. They manage FP&A, financial planning analysis, which is thinking about the future. And number four, they manage the capital structure of your business, debt, equity, financing, etc. So a good CFO needs to be able to do all of those four things. And I think that a business they're ready to hire a full-time CFO when two things are true. Number one, they actually need all four of those aspects to run their business. For example, if they're thinking about debt or equity, or if they're thinking about future forecasting, they need a CFO. Number two is when they're willing to hire somebody who's really good. So the problem in the CFO market is you have a lot of people that you can kind of get cheaply, but they're really controllers and treasurers, and they're not true chief financial officers. True chief financial officers tend to be very, very expensive people because they may cost you $500,000, but they're going to generate $5-10 million of profit for you. And they know that. So they charge more money. So I think the second thing is when you are ready to hire a CFO, don't full-time CFO, don't go cheap. Get somebody really good who understands all four aspects of their job and can create value in all four aspects. If you're not, you're basically paying, money for a very expensive accountant, and accountants are great. That's a part of running businesses, but it's not sufficient to be a CFO. It's only one out of the four things that a great full-time CFO needs to be able to do.
Interesting. So you actually talk about the Fortune 500 playbooks for $10 million companies. So you suggest that smaller companies can adopt big company operating systems, but which systems actually transfer well and which ones become bureaucratic?
Sure. I think the systems that transfer well, number one, are many of the same technology. So, needing a CRM, for example, for your sales and marketing team, needing an ERP an accounting system for your accounting, like using enterprise grade technologies, which are now very affordable for small businesses. You can get them for, $10 to $20 a month for all these systems nowadays. So that's number one. Make sure you get a lot of the same technologies because they're very, very affordable for really any business that's making more than $1 million revenue a year. Number two is data systems, right? Any good business needs data systems. You can use whatever fancy word you want, data lakes, data warehouses, CSV files, but you need some sort of system to store the data of your organization in a way that other people around your organization can access it, think about it, analyze it, and look at, hey, what happened and what could happen. And then the third system that I think a lot of small businesses can copy is how to manage people effectively. This includes the hiring, the promotion, the management, and the termination of employees. I think that there's right ways to do it. These are well-researched ways that you can read from publications from PhDs. You can see them in the internal memos that have been leaked of like large companies, but there is a right way to manage human capital, and you don't have to reinvent how to do hiring right. Like a funny way to, I'll give a practical example. The wrong way to do hiring, and this has been known for about 30 or 40 years now, is to interview someone and just ask them, tell me about your resume, tell me about your 5-year goals. That has zero predictive value. There's no value to doing that interview. You wasted half an hour of the interviewee's time and half an hour of your time. The right way instead is to give them a technical quiz, number one, on the subject matter of their job. So, for an accountant, ask them accounting questions and rank them based on the actual technical skills they show. And number two, ask them to solve a real problem. And it's called a case study method. So you ask them to solve a real problem relevant to their job in real time in front of you or as a piece of homework. And that shows a level of critical thinking and ingenuity that the typical tell me about the last 20 years of your resume and why you studied English or math or accounting doesn't do at all. And yet, most businesses still do what's called the unstructured fit interview, even though it's not actually predictive at all. And this has been known for 40 years.
It's really crazy how recruitment methods differ across board, right? But you definitely need to test the skill sets. But there is a philosophy I have on this podcast. It's called mindsets, skill sets, tool sets. That is, when you're hiring people, when you're collaborating with people, you need to find a way to evaluate their mindsets, then the skill set, and of course the tool set. I'd like for you to speak to that framework. That is the mindset, the skill set, tool set framework in the course of hiring.
So yeah, I like that. I'm, I'm much more about just I think mindset. Most people, who show up to work tend to be reasonably positive human beings. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived in the real world. So a lot of my assessment when I hire people is: do you have the technical skill set, number one, and do you have
Hmm.
the willingness to solve, an ability to solve novel problems? Because every problem you encounter,
Hmm.
almost every problem you encounter in life is novel. It's new. And you need to figure out how to go solve it yourself without your boss needing to tell you how to do it every single day.
Yeah, very important. We need people with critical thinking skills and problem solving skills. You actually have so much experience, and in terms of the technology, it helps with decision making. I has actually come to stay. So before we let you go, I'd like for you to touch on what you think AI is going to influence in terms of the business landscape in the short to medium term.
Sure. So AI is here to stay, and I think there's three types of users. Okay, number one are people who are using it primarily as a chatbot and as a research tool. So tell me about Pokemon, or tell me about the oil industry in Nigeria. So people use it as a research tool and primarily as a chatbot. That's level one. Level two are people who are using AI tools to do work. So let's say, take a general purpose AI tool like Claude Code or something like that, and use it to do work for you, write documents, build models, send emails, etc. That's kind of level two. And level three are people who are building agents that autonomously work without the human interacting, being in the loop at all, or very minimally in the loop. So the human's not chatting with the robot is out there doing things. Um, People, level one is not so useful anymore. Everyone can pull up ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude on their browser and go do stuff on it. The value is being created by the employees, whether junior or senior, who can do work at level two and level three. For example, I think I'm mostly at the level two level right now, where almost anything I do, whether I'm writing emails, whether I'm creating code, whether I am creating Excel models, is being done by AI now autonomously. So I'll type something in, it'll go create the actual work for me. It'll iterate on it. If populate it with real data. And more importantly, it will think about the quality of what it put out. So
Mhm.
in the background,
Yeah.
for example, I have a Claude Code building an analytics tool for me, and it built it like several hours ago. But now it's thinking about, hey, is this actually good enough for what we needed to do? And the answer it came to is no. So it's just repeatedly fixing it over and over and over again, and I'm not involved at all.
Iterations.
I'll come back at
Wow.
sometime like 3 or 4 p.m. today, and it'll have hopefully a pretty good product for me.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that. But a couple of what I say websites have actually banned me for using AI agents. I'm like, what? Like this guy should wake up. I'm not gonna mention, but then I've been banned for using AI agents. And that's just what I'll say. So let's put you through the ring of fire. 5 questions, quick answers, and we'll call it a wrap. Number one, what is one financial metric
Perfect.
every founder must check weekly? One financial metric every founder must check weekly.
Gross margin. What is the increment? What is the margin on the actual stuff you're selling?
Interesting. Number two, what is the biggest money mistake you see smart founders repeat?
Not understanding how to read all three of their financial statements.
Interesting stuff. So, what is the best decision you have ever made under pressure?
To not make a decision right there and to come back in 24 hours when I wasn't under pressure, because I make terrible decisions under pressure. So the fact that I realized the fact I realized I was stressed out and going to make a bad decision and was said like, no, I'm going to come back in 24 hours.
I'll
I'm
tell
not
you
even joking.
something.
Seriously, that's the best decision I've made under pressure.
I once went to a club in the UK and I saw written on the wall, bad decisions make good stories. So, number four, what is one book that has shaped your philosophy about leadership?
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a very old book, 100 years old,
That was the very
and
first
it
book
just
I bought.
teaches you something very simple about like how people think.
I love that.
A little bit about human nature, which I liked.
Okay, final question. What is one belief founders must delete if they want to scale?
Ooh, that's hard. I think The Dark Side of Valuation by Aswan Damodaran. It is a technical book on how on how startups should get better, and like it is not meant for established companies but for hyper growth small companies.
Okay, fantastic. Like I love to say, when a person shares a time with you, they share their life with you because the SI unit for measuring life is time. So thank you very much, Nick Jane, today. And of course, love and respect to you. Do you want to leave a shout out to anyone before you leave? Because from me, it's goodbye.
Yeah, just I would love if people check out our business, eaglerockcfo.com. We are I think the best analytics firm for small and medium businesses and helping them become more profitable literally next month.
Okay, fantastic. Audience, it's goodbye from me. Always go for something in your life. Conceive, believe, strive to thrive, and achieve. God bless. Thank you.